second.
Whatever it is.
All right. How you been, Rick Chapman?
Man, Malcolm Springer, it's been a journey.
One of my oldest friends, man.
Yeah.
It's good, man. Thank you for coming because growing up, hearing some of your stories about Area 51 and stuff, I mean, you know, it's pretty, to me, it was really intriguing, you know. So
Well, there's a little bit of a story of how I got, you know, I don't know if we'll jump to that part of it yet. I've actually.
No. I want to talk about some other stuff first.
Yeah.
I was just introducing you.
Oh, there's a lot of stuff that goes
Make
on.
sure you're on the mic, man.
I'm on the mic. I'm on the mic. Here we go.
We're recording.
We are recording now?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Aren't we, Jackson? Jackson?
We are.
Okay.
He's
You probably need to turn your mic up too, man.
Okay. That sounds good.
Okay, so I want to start the podcast out with. So you were a civilian contractor for the military, the Air Force.
Yeah. I ended up getting involved with the Air Force back when I was working for Metro Music in Atlanta.
Okay.
And I ended up selling the Air Force their very first Mini Moog. You know, and of course,
wow,
yeah,
that's
their
awesome.
very first Mini Moog. And
Hell yeah.
my friend and I, Bill Miller, he worked at Metro also. We ended up doing all the running all the bids for the high schools, universities, military. So when things went out to bid, we would bid on everything. And we also got involved in, especially in on the music side of things, the technology, we got involved in schooling them on what they needed.
Right. Okay.
So that was one of the things that we offered that other people didn't offer, because we're competing like with Washington Music, Chuck Levin's place up in Washington. They were getting the majority of all the military contracts at the time. So it was a really, really difficult thing to break into. So when I went to work with them, I screw up on years and stuff, but it was back in, well, it was in the late 70s. I came back from Boston School of Electronic Music. I was at Berklee College of Music, Boston School of Electronic Music, and I did a couple of semester courses over at MIT in digital electronics.
Right. I knew you were at
I wasn't admitted. I wasn't admitted there, but they had a little program through the Lowell Institute where you took, it was the MIT class
Right.
on digital electronics, when you had to learn Boolean algebra if you were going to take these courses.
What kind of algebra?
Boolean algebra, where you're dealing with just ones and zeros.
Right.
And it's so difficult. It was for me anyways, and it is for everybody because they don't require it anymore. It's that difficult. You have too much of a dropout rate. If people have to learn Boolean algebra, it just eliminates. It just the people that get into the Boolean algebra, they don't communicate with humans anymore. They just look straight forward. They have pocket protectors and big thick glasses and look up at the ceiling all the time. Or actually, they're not looking at the ceiling. They're looking up inside their forehead, because that's where they get all the information from. So.
Right.
And that's what was wandering the halls at MIT when I was there.
So was that more? So that's kind of physics type of thing.
Yeah, well, I was at Boston School of Electronic Music, so I kind of got grandfathered into it. They had an exchange program. Okay. And so from going from BSEM, where I was learning about advanced sequencing and timing control, and back then it was all analog synthesizers, and the very first digital synthesizer it took up a room this size and was, it wouldn't do what the analog would do, but they say, "Oh, it's coming, watch it, this is all going to shrink down and you'll be able to carry it." And we're going like, "Oh, really?"
Yeah, it kind of hurt our business in a lot of ways, but
well, it helped evolve it. It's hurt it. It's evolved it. It's changed it. And what else do you want me to tell you?
Well, that big wall of things that you have over at your house is like intrigues me. The Moog thing.
The big Moog, yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's not. Well, it's a Moog. It's actually synthesizers.com. The guy out in Tyler, Texas, makes those, and it's a clone of a Moog modular.
Okay.
It's a clone. It's exact clone. No, it's sounds the same, and
I want you
put up
to,
against it, you won't hear the difference.
I can't wait till Jackson goes over there, because when he sees that, he's going to freak out. It's Man, it looks like I just want to start plugging in stuff to see what sounds you get, you know. I mean, it's really, really great. But, so you sold the military a lot of audio
Yeah,
stuff.
I started selling them, and then I started consulting with them, setting up sound systems for them. The Air Force had 25 bands, and these bands are good. They're like jazz bands, and uh, 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 these guys are real players and stuff. They're real
Oh, I
entertainers. So
imagine.
when you think of a military band, everyone first thinks of John Philip Sousa marching band stuff. No, these guys had combo bands playing jazz, rock, pop, country, you name it, and they're really good. And every year they have a competition to see who gets to go to Tops in Blue, and they have it out of Minot Air Force Base at SAC Command there.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I got involved. That's the other reason I got involved with them there. And
Well, I know the guy that's the head of the Army band. I recorded his thing, all brass band. Admiral Funk is the name of the band. And man, an all brass band. Of course, there was a drummer, but I recorded in the A room over there at when House of Blues was House of Blues. Now it's turned into a freaking disaster. Anyway, don't go to East Irish Studios, but there you go. We'll see if anybody over there will watch my podcast.
it was one of those things where it was when synthesizers were really evolving. MIDI came out and things became polyphonic and programmable. When I first started off, like with mini Moogs and stuff, or the big Moog module, they still only played one note at a time. They didn't have the technology. Like EMU came out with a scanning keyboard that allowed you to have a multi-voice synthesizer, and but they were still analog. They were just as digital controlling analog sounds.
Wow.
It wasn't even to digital sounds at that point, because the digital sounds at that point really they sucked. Even when the Yamaha DX7 came out, it was people. It was such a new sound that people were wowed by it, but Rhythm City, they bring back the unit a couple of weeks later and go, you hear that noise in there? That wasn't there when I bought it. I go, yeah, it was. You didn't hear it. Because you've learned to hear it now. No. That's not right. I said, okay, Okay, pull out another one. Okay, we'll go with the one on the floor, and it's going to do that. I promise you. Your ear is getting better, And I'd always win the argument. They finally go, I said, if you want to get rid of that, it's going to cost a lot more money. You got to go with the synclavier and fork out about $50,000.
Yeah, those were expensive. Back in the day, they're probably still expensive, aren't they?
No,
Do they even exist?
No, the last one I had the one that originally cost about $78,000, and it ended up. The whole thing was. It was in these big, huge, like 600-pound cases and stuff, and it sold for $3,000.
Wow, that's how much technology.
Yeah. And there's a couple of guys that are still getting into them, keeping them alive and stuff, but they're.
Yeah, we can do so much with a computer already, But anyway, let's talk about aliens, because that's why, of course, music. We can talk music all day long.
Well, it's all interconnected. You know that.
Oh, I know. I know. It's the music is the language of the universe.
That's why Bob Moog invented the Moog modular, because he envisioned it as being a possible way of communicating with extraterrestrial intelligences.
You're kidding me.
I am not kidding you. I met Bob when I was 15 years old and followed him.
I met him one time. He came by the studio on the Full Devil Jacket record and gave me one of those Moog. It's a
pedal.
Yeah, it's a big Moog pedal.
Moogerfooger.
It's a Moogerfooger.
Moogerfooger.
And somebody told me, because it's a number 11. It just came out. He ain't even came out with them yet. He came out there to see what me and Paul Hager thought about it. And I'll never forget that. I got to meet Bob Moog, got my picture taken with him and all that good stuff. But it's why he created the Moog synthesizer, because he thought that would. You need a pillow for your back.
He was working for NASA at the time.
You need a pillow for your back?
No, I'm okay. I just have to readjust. Yeah.
Okay. But no, seriously though, it's so crazy.
He was working for NASA when he developed the Moog modular system. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Oh yeah.
And
he wasn't a musician.
Bob Moog wasn't a
He
musician.
wasn't a musician. Neither was Dave Smith with Sequential Circuits, who did the Prophet 5 and the...
No way.
I'm telling you right now. God bless his soul, just passed recently.
How did they get the? Never mind. We won't get that deep into it.
Okay.
Because I do wonder how they get the tuning thing down. Because the lower you go, the flatter the note is. And the higher you go, the sharper it is in tune. And it's why a piano tuner is so hard to find the good ones, because they gotta really know what they're doing. You can't tune it right to the freaking tuner, or it won't work.
Well, the one reason Moog always captured everybody and sounded so organic was he did something nobody else did with his oscillators. They drifted slightly. That was intentional. Of course, they had to warm up so they became stable, but they would still drift slightly, and it gave it an organic feel.
Right.
Everybody else, like over, they made their oscillators so zzz, they were just a clock that was right on, and as a result, everything sounded more like where Moog stuff would had this swimminess to it, and it got an emotional response the other stuff didn't get.
Right. That's so
It
interesting.
sounded organic, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. Where were we going from there? Okay, we're gonna.
Okay.
You wanted to talk about.
So tell us about your experiences. I mean, I know you. Did you go to Area 51 or outside of Area 51? I know you went to Wright-Patterson, which is
Wright
just...
Patterson. No, I dealt with Wright-Patterson for years and stuff. And that, well, I need to back up, because how I got to Area 50, well, out to the Nevada test site, I should say, was a friend of the family. My dad's ball turret gunner. My dad flew B-17s in World War II. He was 19 years old, dropping bombs in Nazi Germany, and his ball turret gunner, Eddie Herman, they were just lifelong friends. And through an association, 351st Bomb Group has an association with the Air Force where all the pilot crew members and ground members and stuff, their families got together and had like yearly reunions. They still do. I haven't been to one in a while. But the daughter, actually the son of Eddie Herman, which is another Eddie too, his wife Sherry, and her dad was flew in B-24s. We all became really good friends and bonded. And I didn't know this at the time when I was meeting him at these reunions, what she did and what he did. The son of the ball turret gunner was a test pilot for NASA and stuff. So he was doing test pilot work. She was working for the Department of Energy, and she was doing everything from writing grants to, she's a nuclear emergency search team manager. Those are the guys that when there's a loose nuke or even nuclear material that's missing, she manages the teams that go out and find it.
Wow, that's a freaking hell of a job.
Yeah, and we'll be able to put the pictures up of some of the technology that I can share that's not classified. I can't. I have to be careful on the classified stuff that was shared with me. I cannot.
Well, I know you showed me a picture earlier that was classified.
Yeah. So,
sorry about that, but you guys can't see that.
Well, no, actually, that one I can. That one, no, I can.
Yeah.
Actually, I can. I can show
that one.
That one I can show. Yeah.
Okay, and that brings me, I got a ton of questions for you. I don't want to interrupt you, but go ahead.
Let me
keep on going.
So they live in Vegas.
Right.
So after my dad passed and stuff, this was back in 2009. I reconnected with him. I just had a wild hair up my ass. You remember I said I went out to Vegas. I said, I'm going out to Vegas.
Right, going to Vegas. And
the next thing I know, she's picking me up out there, taking me over to Nellis Air Force Base, running me over to see the Thunderbirds rehearse on the flight line at Nellis Air Force Base, introducing me to all the people in the Thunderbirds. Sit me down in one of the flight simulators. Back when you could sit down in one of the flight simulators out there, you can't do that anymore. But
my dad took me to so many of those air shows. But anyway, go ahead.
But this wasn't an air show.
No, but I'm saying the Thunderbird. I'm just saying the Thunderbirds was what we went to see all the time.
Right.
But that's where they rehearsed.
This was the flight line at Nellis Air Force Base.
Okay.
This is where they do all their operational training. So the first time I was out there watching operational training, I was seeing an F-22, and this is back when F-22s and F-35s, they were still like highly classified, and there are certain things that are still highly classified on them. But one of the things I witnessed was an F-22 was doing a touch and go where they come in, they kind of touch down, and they take right back off.
Right.
And this guy goes straight up in the air. It was a totally blue sky, and he probably got up 3,000 or 4,000 feet, and the damn thing disappeared. It wasn't there.
What?
And I looked over to the Colonel Colson. I looked at him, I said, well, he goes, what? He goes, he's just smiled at me. He goes like, she. I said, it was gone. It was gone. It was not there. And then about 15 minutes later, same plane with same tail sign on it, came back down and landed and stuff. I said, whoa, that plane just disappeared. He goes, yeah, we got some pretty good toys, don't we? This is back in 2012. So this 21 years ago. And yeah, I mean, not 21 years ago, 12 years ago. So she started the next thing she did was she brought me over to the threat assessment facility at Nellis, and that's where they have all the they've captured all the Russian hardware, all their missiles, everything from rocket propelled grenades to the big stuff, the big quad missile stuff. So I got a chance to go over and see what, the threats that this country faces from our main adversary. And it was pretty impressive. They know. In fact, the 547th Intel Wing at Nellis, they have a little patch that looks like Boris. Remember Rocky and Bullwinkle, Boris and Natasha? They got a little picture of Boris up there and saying, "Our adversaries have no secrets."
Okay. All right.
That was their motto. Our adversaries have no secrets.
We got James Bond type motherfuckers everywhere.
It's gotten so much more sophisticated since then, I believe. But
that makes me want to talk to you too about the other thing we talked about the other day. But anyway, go ahead. Because
so to move the conversation along, so I'm getting a full introduction to what the whole purpose of the Nevada test site is about, in which it's now the Nevada National Security Site. It used to be the Nevada Test Site, NTS. Now it's the NNSS, Nevada National Security Site. So,
and that is Area 51?
Area 51's inside the Nevada Test Site. It's an area inside. It's inside the test site. So the next person, so we go out. She goes, "Oh, I've got someone I want you to meet. We're going to sit down and we're going to go over to P.F. Chang's and have dinner." And this gentleman that joined us was a gentleman by the name of Ernie Williams, and he was responsible basically for. He went to work for him in 1955, and the reason he went to work for him was he was responsible for getting Area 51 online to do what it needed to do. And the first thing he did was they were like, for all the runways and concrete and everything, they were having to truck water out there. And he looked at the whole operation. He said, "This isn't going to work. We can never make this schedule here. We got to drill and find water out here." So they got the drilling rigs out there, and he went out and tapped into the water, and and then they were able to do all the runways and all the infrastructure out there with what was there. So he was really responsible for.
They call it Groom Lake. Is it really a lake? Or was it a lake?
Oh yeah, it was an old.
It was a prehistoric lake.
Yeah, one of those prehistoric lakes. The salt or all your salt flats out there are from the Permian Basin.
How interesting is that? that they picked
So
that particular
I
site?
met Ernie, and Ernie was responsible for conducting all the nuclear above ground testing. He did a whole bunch of the underground tests, also like 82 of them out there. He is involved with all. He's good friends with Edward Teller, the godfather of the hydrogen bomb, the thermonuclear bomb.
I've always wondered though, did they test it like near that site though? Near the
What?
thing? Did they test? Where is those pictures that they show of them testing? Is that the spot? Is that where they're at?
Oh yeah, that's in the Nevada test site. It's the big mountain range. It's all surrounded by all these mountains, and there's different areas within the test site. Like they have Yucca Flats, Frenchman Flats. They have Jackrabbit Flats. In each one of these sections, they had different types of nuclear tests in them.
So is that where though? Like when you see those cities, do they make those like cities and then blow the things up to see what it did?
Oh
to them?
yeah, I've been there. That's what he
That
ended
is
up.
eerie as fuck, man.
He ended up he gave me a full tour of the Nevada test
So
site.
you went to one of those where they have a fake city.
I spent a full day, a full 9 hours at the test site.
Wow.
In fact, in one of the Area 51 buses, one of the buses that takes all the employees out there, Area 51, the driver was, he shared a lot of information. He goes, "Oh,
I
yeah,
just wonder, like, that is an absolute now. After they test there, is an absolute wasteland. There's nothing can grow there, nothing can live there.
Not true.
Really?
Not true.
Well, how do they do all that?
Um,
Well, I know you're not a physicist or anything. I'm just
We were
wondering.
really good at building efficient bombs. So when they set them off, they made real efficient use of the material that was in them. So it didn't have a lot of nastiness left over. Let's put it
Okay,
that way.
so there wasn't a lot of radiation let off.
It used the fuel up as much as possible. So
Okay.
no, I went in some of the craters at Sedan Crater. The last above ground nuclear test we did, there was a test they were doing for basically let's use nuclear bombs to build canals.
Right.
So
You sound so sexy when you're on the microphone. You sound sexy when you're up on the microphone.
stop it. I got a little tingle
Well,
in my leg.
canals. We could
canals.
go a long way with that one. Anyway, go ahead.
So I was kind of concerned. Should I get out and walk around? And here's Ernie, and he just passed away just 3 weeks ago at
Oh,
the
I'm
age
sorry,
of
man.
91, and he was one of the original.
Oh
nuclear-
wow! So
he
it
was-
wasn't too radioactive.
No, exactly. He was one of the guys that was in the trenches when they were doing. They call it a shot when they do a
Right.
above ground test. The shot. So when the shot went off, you saw the guys were in the trenches like a half mile away, and the 500-mile-an-hour wind is going over them in the trenches. He was one of those
Right.
guys. They
Oh,
called
wow.
them nuclear soldiers. They did test on. They put our guys in harm's way to learn about the
Nuclear.
effects of nuke because they didn't know.
Right.
They didn't know. It was all theoretical. They had to have hands-on operations.
It
These
worked
guys.
out. What you're saying is it worked out good on paper.
No, what I'm saying, what I'm saying are all the guys that I've met who are involved in the development of nuclear weapons. They're patriots.
Really?
They love this country. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wish that was more people
They wish
like
they
that.
they wish they didn't have to do what they did, but they had to.
Right.
So we'd be safe.
Right.
They were willing to sacrifice, the ultimate sacrifice and more.
So let me ask you. Hang on. So, being out there, did you hear of anything about what they did with the Roswell? With the UFO crash that happened in '47.
I did because I became in a roundabout way, and this I can talk about because
because now everybody knows. You think Bob Lazar is full of shit? I guess that's
no,
the big.
absolutely not.
I don't think so either.
No, because the head of security for Area 51 was Richard Mingus, and we befriended each other. He was working security at the Atomic Testing Museum, at the time I was became basically invited into the circle.
Right.
And I would have long conversations with him about, and there's most of the things I asked him about. He goes, I can't talk about that. No, I can't. We don't talk about Bob Lazar.
Okay, so Bob Lazar did come up in the conversation.
Oh, absolutely. We don't talk about Bob Lazar, and we don't talk about remote viewing.
But you can't talk about remote viewing on here.
No, well, we can. I can talk about it. I just can't talk about individuals that I.
Because remote viewing is real. And now,
oh, absolutely.
Is that particular at Groom Lake or Area 51? Is that where they do the remote viewing? Okay. I shouldn't ask that question.
Well, no. You can ask any question. I just can't talk about it.
Okay. Well, I'm assuming that means they do. So, but those guys do they really? No. Look. This remote viewing thing. Do you think that's really how we spy on our adversaries? Is that one of the reasons? Is that one of the ways that they know that something's going on with China or there's something going on with Russia?
It could be.
I mean,
yeah, it could be. Oh, I think so?
They make fun of it on the men that stare at goats. You know what I'm saying?
No, you don't. They make. That's the only way.
Make light of it anyway.
They make light of it because they have to try to discredit it.
Right.
You understand?
Of course
they have to try to discredit it at that point. But what I was going back to, okay, with Richard Mingus. We were next to the bookstore at the Atomic Testing Museum, and he walks in, and I said, "There's a lot of books here on Area 51 and stuff, and which one where should I start?" And he goes, "There's only one, and that's Annie Jacobson's book, Area 51."
That's what it's called.
Area 51, and Annie Jacobson, she interviewed all the many people who worked out there, mostly a lot of people who worked at the test site, though.
Right.
She did all of her research and interviewed everybody upstairs at the Atomic Testing Museum.
Wow.
And so I picked up her book and started reading it. But before I started reading it, Dick Mingus goes, "Everything in this book is accurate."
Wow. Wow.
Okay, he goes, "Everything in this book is accurate, except there's one chapter in there that I have to," he didn't say it was false, he goes, "I have to insert plausible deniability on it." He goes, "There's one that," and then it had to basically, in the chapter it's referring to Roswell, the Roswell crash. What happened to the Roswell crash alien? And what was told to Annie and what she put in there was, no, it was a Russian operation.
We both know that's not true.
Well, it gets complicated. Here's the deal. No, because they were doing it. They were of the opinion that after Orson Welles did the War of the Worlds radio broadcast, and they noticed how everyone freaked out. It was a psyops operation that the Russians did, where they actually had genetically, they were working with Mengele, one of the Nazi scientists, to genetically change kids.
And that was Operation Paperclip, right?
No, that came later. That was here. This is stuff Stalin did in working with the Nazis in Russia. So,
man, that makes me.
So they were doing. So they were doing their best to create the illusion that this was a UFO crash. Now, I think at the same time there might have been some other stuff that happened simultaneously at it, but from all what I understand, it was a Russian operation, a PSYOPs operation. And they didn't want the American public to know about that because they really kind of got one up on us. Right. They penetrated our airspace.
So you're saying that Roswell was not alien?
My opinion, well, yes and no.
Okay.
Part of it wasn't, and when we talk alien, are we talking?
Were they visitors from another solar system?
They could have been observing the whole process because they've been, I think they're intelligent entities with incredible technological capabilities, and the question is, are they really alien? Are they us from the future? Or have they been here all along?
That's the big
Are
question.
they coming out of Antarctica? Are they cloaking themselves and they've been watching us
Do they
the
live
whole
on the
time?
fucking moon?
They've been on the planet for a long time. Well, here, on the moon stuff, my uncle Marcus, he designed the power supplies that went on the first satellites that went around the moon.
Right.
And he was, I remember him telling me this as a kid, the first pictures that came back from that, he said there's structures on the far side. On the far side of the moon.
I've seen pictures, and they're not doctored either.
This is my uncle telling me. This is my uncle Marcus is telling me that there are structures on the far side of the moon.
Right.
And the second time they showed the pictures, those pictures had been taken out and removed. Now, okay, years and years and years go by, and I just by chance, when I was out living in New Mexico, we were doing some photography for when people doing the portraits and stuff. They come up, you take their picture, if they like them, you sell them to them, that type of thing. We were doing that with the police department. So it's a way of making a living. I met this gentleman by the name of Joe Firm, and he worked for Jet Propulsion Laboratories. And yes, he confirmed the same. He knew my Uncle Marcus. And he said the same thing. He goes, the first round, you saw the structures. On the second round, you saw the pictures. Those pictures were removed.
Who was the ones that went around Apollo 13, right? Well, they went around the moon. The slingshot back there.
That's the one they didn't land. They had
they slingshotted around the moon. And they said, NASA, there's lights out here, and we're wondering what we're seeing. Mm-hmm. I've heard the recordings. I'm a big believer in what the good book says, the Bible, about the Watchers. I think that's what we're referring to as the Watchers. I think they've been here a lot longer than humanity. There's a rabbit hole to go down.
That's a rabbit hole to go down. Absolutely.
But my question is though, is when Roswell happened, they came back with, no, it's not a UFO, it's a weather balloon. Which the problem is at that point the cat's out of the bag.
Well, that's where they thought they were good at covering up lies, and they're not.
Well, what the American public...
They are for a while, but...
The American public does not realize that there's been bullshit, I guess you say fake news, since the Alamo. And the Alamo was before we were a full country, because the Alamo... They say that they put out a thing in the press that Santa Ana killed all of the women and children and all the men in there. And it was a bullshit lie. It was a fucking lie. He let the women and children go, and most of the men go. He captured some of them, but they still think that, was it David Crockett? That was the guy that was down there, right? The guy that was the governor of Tennessee, right? That was David Crockett.
David Crockett, yeah.
David Crockett.
Yep.
They say David Crockett did not die at the Alamo. They say he lived a full life. But the whole thing was propaganda, But I don't think the American public realizes that that's how much bullshit that they put into the press. I mean, they can tell you anything, and everybody believes anything they know. Didn't think that Roswell didn't happen.
And back then, nobody questioned what was put in the media. Nobody, they were not to be questioned because everyone was being patriots. And if the government need to have secrets, that's okay because they're protecting us, in other words. But there again, that's what Eisenhower was warning. His warning was, beware of the military-industrial complex.
Well, that is another question that I don't have written down, but I want to ask you. Do you think that, because I talked to a friend of mine that's going to be on the podcast too pretty soon, because we were talking on the phone today. Do you think Eisenhower really did a contract with the extraterrestrials or whatever is here, what we're calling extraterrestrials? Do you think that there was a contract made with them, a deal done, and then we're reneging on the deal now, and that's why we're seeing all these UFOs?
His granddaughter thinks that's what happened.
Well,
I mean, there's a lot of evidence.
There's a lot of evidence.
There's a lot of evidence. I did, when I was in New Mexico, when I would go down to Alamogordo, right next to Holloman Air Force Base. You go in the little local bar in there, and there was nothing but blonde hair, blue eye, German-speaking pilots in the local bar, and you wonder, well, what's up here?
Well, do you think, and I'm very serious, do you think that what do you think our military is seeing right now? What do you think those objects are? And do you think those are the same objects that we shot down? Because I don't think it's the same objects that we shot down. Or do you think?
No. Those were balloons. That's nothing.
Oh, really? Okay.
I can't even believe they wasted a
Sidewinder missile, a freaking $1 million missile, $400,000 missile on a side.
They could have taken out with a couple of.
But my question is why would they? But why would they? How could they miss one? How did they miss one with a Sidewinder missile? Now, a Sidewinder missile is heat sinking. Wouldn't a balloon be hotter than the actual? It
has. It's not just heat signature on those. They have visual confirmation. They have optics that will identify and lock on the optics on those missiles. So
because there was one around.
They have optical lock, not just heat lock. They have optical lock on those.
You think it's bullshit that we?
Oh, I thought the way they handled the whole thing was just. The only reason they did that was because some guy spotted one because they're up there at 60, 70,000 feet and varying and they've been coming over us for a long time. They've been doing it. Just got brought to the attention of the public, and they had to put on a show.
Right.
They had to put on a show and let them know we're protecting you. What if that thing was covered in weaponized anthrax and they hit it and blow it up and it spreads anthrax all over the place?
But I'm wondering, how can they let it float across our freaking country? I know we're getting off topic here, but still, the whole point is like, my big question is what do you think that David Favor, what do you think he videoed on his jet?
I think everything that he saw and everything that they've been talking about in that aspect of things, I believe is ours.
Wow.
I believe that's our technology that we're seeing there. Yeah.
Really?
I'll tell you this, because
you don't think those are, when Michio Kaku gets on, I saw him on a podcast this morning on Lex Freeman, and he said they define the law of physics that we know today. So how could one of the smartest men that walked the planet, probably the top 5 smartest men in the world, say that, hey man, they defy the law of physics and there's no way we have any kind of technology near that? Or do you think, that must say what Michio Kaku said.
Well, absolutely. Look at what Ben Rich said. It used to be with Lockheed, the statements he made. We have the technology to take ET home and back. And we did. We've been sitting on it for some time. I don't know exactly how long we've been sitting. I haven't been privy to that information, but for some time we've had it, and it's been developed and it's been manipulated. But I believe most of what's seen is there's a breakaway civilization that's happened within our country. Right now, there's a breakaway civilization that's calling the shots that we're not even
privy to.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, And it's there.
Is it the billionaires or is it just the?
Oh no! There's a breakaway. There's breakaway technology and stuff that, and I believe we have the ability to go to these places. I believe we've been leaving the planet Earth. Now NASA, no, they're still shooting rockets up, and well, that's how we got to get them. They can't admit to having this other technology, the stuff that Bob Lazar is talking, that he's involved with and stuff. But it has to do the tapping into where does it get the power from? Right. And if you follow the stuff that has to do with 0-point energy, that's all around us all the time. They have the technology of tapping into that. We're just now, learning how to tap into certain power, and the people the people who figure this stuff out and put these patents in, all those patents get like taken over national security
really quick.
They never see the light of day. And the people, the guy who did the car that ran on water, we know it was hydrolysis and stuff. It actually worked. But he ended up, they kill all T. Henry Moray, gone. I mean, all these guys come up with these. George Van Tassel, and I got this. The guy who built the Integratron out in the Yucca Valley, Landers, California, out in the dome thing that's the immortality machine. You've seen it. Yeah,
I have seen it.
You've seen it on Ancient Aliens. You've seen it on a bunch of other stuff.
I've seen on a bunch of specials. Do you think that thing works?
Yeah. I've been in it. I spent days in there.
I have drove by it, but I've never seen it.
I went out there, and some friends of mine introduced me to his wife, Doris Van Tassel, and I spent 2 weeks out there with her.
Wow.
And most of it, I can't recall. It's missing time. Now, I can tell you this: George Van Tassel was highly decorated. He was a genius.
Do they think they killed him off too?
Oh, absolutely.
I think so too.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm glad you said it because I've always thought that. And
yeah, they took him out.
Because he knew how to stop aging, and that was something they wanted.
And the machine that he built these devices that these geniuses have learned. When they want to bring them in for the betterment of humanity, the bad actors show up and they get taken out and they're dead. Like Wilhelm Reich, he was doing the same thing with accumulators, curing cancer and stuff. But just
they don't want that.
But he was the energy, what they call orgone, or what the Hindus call your astral plane. That's the taboo because it's sexual energy. It's what runs through the universe. It's the collective. That's the collective consciousness part of it.
So you're talking about the Akashic record?
The Akashic record, it is part of that. Yeah.
Okay.
Van Tassel, he said that's actually stored in the ionosphere. The Akashic record.
By the way, I just want to tell you, I don't mean to stop you, but I have to say this right now is why I want to do this podcast.
Nice.
This is the stuff I want to really talk about.
Nice.
Because am I a geek for knowing all this crazy stuff?
Or even being curious about it. Yeah.
Well, and I think sitting in a control room making records for 35 years, I think what it's done is I think that I just have had a lot of time to think about these kind of things,
Well,
and I'm very curious, and the answers are kind of tough sometimes because there's some things that me and you've talked about that we won't talk about here that's really like, wow, seriously. I mean, it just makes you go, it almost makes you angry because it's like the normal and the general public is so ignorant to this fact that these things are real, and you're made fun of by your friends that you believe in them. Like I get the Bigfoot thing all the time because I know the Bigfoots exist.
Absolutely.
And it's like, but I don't want to mix aliens and Bigfoot up because then we did get discredited. Now that's the problem. Is like, if you believe in Bigfoot, believe in aliens, you're an asshole. You're a crazy person. It's like, come on, man. I mean, look, there's too much. But anyway,
what happened there? We lost our picture behind us. Can't do that.
You guys see my beautiful picture.
My
there.
dad would sit down and tell people face to face that in a past life he was a Sasquatch. He was a Yeti. And he had
Are you serious? That's awesome.
He had past life experiences of being a Yeti and stuff, and everyone go, and absolutely convincing, without a doubt. You go, yep, yeah, you were.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, my dad was also after World War II. And he was 19 years old. Now, that's, dropping bombs in Nazi Germany when you're 19 years old. That's not, that is, yeah. But he came back and went to Georgia Tech and became a mechanical engineer, electromechanical engineer, biochemical engineer, ended up managing the plastics division for Mead Packaging International.
Wow.
But when we were living, he was actually working for Reynolds Aluminum, helped develop the aluminum can with Reynolds Aluminum. They gave him all of his patents he had 25 of them. They gave him a silver dollar. That's what they did back in the day. When you're a company man, you came up with a patent that belonged to the company, and they give you a silver dollar for recognition for that patent.
That's crazy.
But he was also working with, Air National Guard. He stayed on Air National Guard and became part of Project Blue Book.
Okay.
Where he was trained to know how fast thing, and he already had a good idea, but they trained him on how to spot objects that how to calculate how fast they're traveling and stuff, and what the properties of them were. Well, this is when my mom was pregnant with me. 3 months in, he was painting the house, and one stopped directly above the house while he was on the ladder, and took off. He estimated right about probably 3,000 miles an hour from a dead stop. And I just laughed at myself. Well, Dad, they were just dropping me off. Didn't you know that?
They were just dropping you off.
They were just dropping me off. But he was one of the pilots trained in Project Blue Book and stuff. And he is a firm believer. He's a firm believer that there were things out there that we don't understand.
I'm so happy that now we can talk about things out in the open, and because if you think those things that the Navy is seeing out there off the coast of the East Coast and the West Coast, but the problem is they're also in the South China Sea. There's a bunch of them seen, and in the Middle East there's a bunch of them seen. That's where I have a problem of them being ours. I mean, but not. I just have a problem with somebody like. Take, for instance, like Travis Taylor, the guy who was ahead of the UAP task force.
He's doing the Skinwalker Ranch stuff out right now.
For years, this guy, and he doesn't know what they are. So that means if he doesn't know, or maybe he's acting like he doesn't know, but I got a feeling that if him sitting there looking at those videos, he's not acting. He's going, I don't know what this is. This is a guy who's a physicist who has, probably Travis Taylor probably is in the top 5 smartest men in the world.
I was invited to the Area 51 reveal party back in 2013 when they admitted Area 51 existed. They had it at the Atomic Testing Museum. And that's where I really got to meet all the Area 51 people. T.D. Barnes, Dick Mingus, Ernie was there. I met one doctor, well, in particular, Dr. Rudy Schild there, and he's had some recent stuff on YouTube that I caught up. He's a Harvard astrophysicist. This guy's the real deal. And you watch any of his interviews with George Knapp, this is the recent stuff, he's laying out stuff that is like, okay, you talk about our understanding of physics as it is. They have now been able to measure the speed of quantum gravity waves. You know how fast they are? They're 100,000 times the speed of light. Light is not, we have this concept as light's the fastest thing. No. Quantum gravity waves are 100,000 times. They've been able to measure this. It's a measurement they've been able to take. He's coming out revealing it now. He's not, and these guys are the real deal. They're patriots. They're scientists. And they're taking a chance of starting to let some of this information, classified information, out for the public. I'm not telling you anything that's not been released to the public so far. But yeah.
Well, I think
Well,
that.
also the speed of light. Just let's get back to the speed of light for a second. Speed of light isn't all at 186,000 miles a second. That's true, and it's not, because it all depends on the color and the spectrum of the color, because different colors travel at different speeds. That's how they're
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's how they're
Although
able.
I knew a lot about physics, but I didn't know that.
No. That's how they're able to go and to take a fiber optic and put so much information down it, is they multiplex the different colors traveling at different speeds, and that's how they get that much
okay.
more information down it. Because if they were just having to do ones and zeros, it wouldn't work. But you get different colors, all of a sudden, rather than having one thing going ones and zeros, you have a whole bunch of different colors
Right.
coming in at different times, so they're not all arriving at the same time.
Right.
But that's
Interesting.
something they don't talk about either.
That's so interesting. That's way interesting.
Well, you look at we only see a very narrow spectrum of the light spectrum. What we
Right.
see right here, there's a bunch of other stuff going on around us that has a bunch of sacred geometry and magnetic waveforms, and there's all stuff going on around us right now, and we don't even know.
Well, let me ask you something. Do you believe in the in string theory and the different dimensions around us? I mean, can you?
Oh yeah. Not string theory necessarily. I mean, there's some flaws in string theory, but yeah, there's some of it that's absolutely. There's a lot of, it's valid in a lot of areas. But I'm not a physicist.
No.
But I didn't. We can. We will follow the stream of consciousness and digress at times. But let's bring the conversation. It comes back to. You wanted to talk about my experience with aliens and stuff, and where
Right.
it
I do,
is.
yeah.
This is the first time I'm going to go on record. I've told close people to me about this. I've never gone public with this before. Right. I was contacted in Miami, well, actually Fort Lauderdale. I had a recording studio down there, and didn't see a craft, but I observed technology, and along with that technology I observed, I was contacted by entities. I was communicated to in called conscious communication, where my mouth wasn't moving or saying anything.
Right.
I would just the questions I asked were just by thought. I was told them I could ask any question I wanted to. I even asked them about death and things.
Was this a dream or was this awake?
No, this is awake. I'd never been more awake in the whole thing happened over hours.
Okay.
This was
Okay.
and it all came down to I was in the studio and I was at the console. The first thing I noticed that was odd was I was noticing there was movement. You know how the glass in the studio is angled?
Right.
I was seeing reflection of movement. There wasn't anybody else in the studio. But I started seeing something's going on here. No one is in here. So I started running around the studio and double doors and trying to, do we have a mouse in here or a rat doing this movement that I was detecting, and I couldn't, and I went back to the console again, and I started hearing pattern running on the roof above me. If something, you can be a soundproof studio, but if something hits the wall, you can still hear it, or on the roof, you can still hear it on contact. So I went outside looking at that. No, nothing. So I started doing the standard. Okay, my senses were up looking for something. And then I noticed that the LED on our alarm, the little red light that was on the alarm, all of a sudden I noticed that there was like, it looked like a laser coming from it that was, it was the size like a spider web fineness. If you can imagine a spider web, just a single strand of a spider web. And I looked at it, and it was static. I could take it and look at it. I'd go around, and I could see this, and go on, and it hit the wall. And where it hit the wall, it was about a 1 inch, like almost a little, what I'll just refer to as a stick of light. It hit it in the center and bouncing off. It hit the other wall. It would do the same. Each place it moved around.
Wow.
So that was freaking me out. I was going, well, this is a technology, and I just thought it was something that the feds were like trying. My partner he was a cocaine person and stuff. I said, oh, they're surveilling Lou, you know, they're gonna catch him now. What the hell's going on with this? I'm telling you the truth on that one.
Really?
And I'm not high. I mean, I am. This one day I was working on a whalers project after Bob's death with this white dread out of South Carolina, and speaking of things coming from above, here we go. So I'm trying to. I'm looking at.
What did these entities look like?
I am seeing a technology, or what I'm interpreting as a technology, basically, that doesn't exist. So, okay, which is basically I'm witnessing manipulation of photon matrix,
right,
or what Edgar Mitchell's going to refer to as the quantum holograph. I am seeing it being. In other words, I am watching this happening at that time.
Right.
Well, things get a little bit more interesting. So I finally go back and I'm able to trace where this light's coming from. And actually, there was a lot more of it as I started looking for it. It was happening more and more over the studio.
And you wasn't high?
No, I wasn't high. No, I was not high. All this stuff was.
I'm not being funny. I'm being very serious.
Oh no, I was straight. Everything was static that I was watching. My analytical mind went into overdrive trying to figure this out.
Right.
And I'm not. I can usually figure stuff out.
Yeah, you're a pretty smart
Especially
fella.
when it comes to electricity and electronics and sound and things like that. I'm not bad at it. So it comes back to. Oh, let me back up. Everything. There was no windows in the studio at all. In fact, the only place that any light could come in the studio from the outside was this little square hole in the door. It was a carriage bolt, a hole for a carriage bolt, so it was square. And I looked out the little hole, and it was weird. I saw that rather than just looking across and seeing the wall across the way, all of a sudden the plane of what I was looking at got shifted, so the top of what I was looking at looked like it was right here. And so basically, it was what was happening with the field of vision was being distorted, going through that little hole.
So you were seeing through an event horizon type of thing.
I'm not going to put it that way, but it wasn't normal. Well, I turned around and I looked on the wall where there should have just been, if any light comes through that little hole, it should have just been a little, light on the wall.
Right.
Instead, where it was hitting the wall was a projection where there is a grid of light.
Right.
And on the tips of this grid, all the smaller like laser light, like very fine, like spider web type laser light was coming off of it and bouncing. It's like they were, the best way I could describe it was, I was in the middle of a reverse hologram. In other words, someone was going in that little hole and being able to see everything that was going on in the studio by manipulating the photon matrix.
And
That's the best way.
was this was this in Miami?
Yeah, in Fort Lauderdale. It scared the hell out of me. You know, I was like, oh, what is going on here? And the next thing I know, and it's at this point, this has been going on for hours and stuff.
Right.
And then there was a big knock at the door. Bam, 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 bam on the door. And I look out through that little carriage bolt, and there was a car there that had all these different types of antennas and instrumentation devices on it. It was like a Chevrolet Caprice, a tan Chevrolet Caprice, you know, something standard that the government stuff would use back then.
Oh, wow.
And in the back of it, though, there was, it had an isolation chamber in the back. It had a temporary tag on it, first of all. The car did. But there was another thing where it was between the driver's seat and the back seat had a plexiglass partition with certain numbers and coding on it.
Right.
Anyways, I said, what is this? This is high level government stuff going on here. This isn't, you know.
How interesting.
This isn't normal. Well, at that point in time, I went back in the studio. I said, well, if they're going to come in here, they're going to have to bust that door down. They're going to have to bust those two doors down because I'm going to
bolt it up.
I'm not opening the door for nobody tonight.
We'll have to put some plastic explosives on this mother.
Yeah, and it was February 29th. It was leap year. It was a full moon. My birthday was the next day, March 1st. I mean, these are all the things I remember so clearly. So I go in the studio and I just lay down. And as soon as I laid down, it was like I got sucked through the floor. I think probably my astral body had, you know, like was just sucked through the floor. I was in another room.
What?
And I was all of a sudden hearing all the music that was been recorded being played back to me that was being worked on from the night before. It was being played back to me, and it was coming from all around. There was no source. And at that point in time, I started asking what was going on. And there was an entity spoke to me, and this is mental. I just said, what's going on to myself? And all of a sudden, a voice came back that wasn't mine. Right. I was communicated to. And at that point, there was so much stuff that was downloaded at that time.
Right.
Because this voice was absolutely willing to answer any question I had about anything in the universe whatsoever. And their intent of the contact that they told me, the essence of the message was that, in the exact words it said, is the extraterrestrials have communicated to the creator that they like the music you're working on. That was just it. That was it. They said they liked the music that was happening. I was working on stuff with the Wailers out of, you know, Bob had just passed a couple of years ago, and then I was working on a whole two album project with them and stuff. So that was kind of interesting on its own merit.
Do you feel that music is a universal language?
Absolutely, it's interconnected to it. And it was something that is, you know, it is. I have faith in the universe from this experience. I've learned.
Do you
to
feel
trust
like it was a God experience?
It was a spiritual experience, absolutely. And everybody I know who's had a true contact. Right. It's a spiritual experience. There's a spiritual component to it, and I'll leave it at that.
Well,
it has.
I know we gotta get out here, but I just want to say we're gonna have a Chappy part 2. Listen, I've got one more question for you.
All right.
2 more. Number 1, do you feel that God is an alien? And are we in a simulation?
First of all, when anyone to me speaks of God, I can't personalize. To me, it's an energy, and I can't personalize it.
Okay,
And
okay.
that's
This is something we
basically.
can talk about on
It's
the.
so to me, the energy of what everyone refers to as God is so much Yeah.
The energy is everywhere.
The
But
energy
we'll do
is
that on
everywhere.
part
The
2.
energy is everywhere.
Because I think we should do a part 2, and I just want to ask you.
It's what we all. It's the one thing we all have in common. No matter how much we agree, we still have the energy in common.
Right.
Yeah.
And because I think that we should do a part 2 because I want to talk about, and I know this will make a good lengthy podcast, and we'll do another hour if that's okay when you get back from the other things.
Yeah,
I think we should. Man, thank you so much for coming, man.
Nice. We'll do it again.
Yeah, I
We'll
don't wanna-
finish up. I mean,
I don't want to get into the China situation yet, but I do want to touch on that the next time. All right.
Okay.
All right.
No problem, my
Love
friend.
you,
All right, I
man.
love you too.
One
We'll
of my
make it happen
oldest,
again.
one of my oldest, closest friends. Awesome. You've seen me do things that no one else will ever see me do. All right.
Oh my.
Let's get
Oh,
out of
my.
here.